Warning: some contents may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. This is the song that never ends. Yes, it goes on and on, my friend. Some people started singing it, not knowing what it was, and they'll never stop singing it forever, just because this is the song that never ends. I sang softly while watching the skinwalker out the front. I nodded deliberately at the former mortician, who started singing it. He seemed to hesitate, like he felt foolish for singing a child's song. Sing the song. These things hunt by fear. The song will distract you, but only if you sing it. Don't stop singing, I tell the hostess slowly. Walking slowly to the serving area, I call the cook. I want you to join us out here and sing that song, I say, not breaking eye contact. Drawing my gun, I stepped away from the serving area. I said, I'm going to distract them. You get to his car and leave. They nodded but kept singing, though the hostess was visibly paler. Pulling out my gun, I decided to draw upon the experience of the Jersey Devil encounter. I needed to feel fear, and nothing on this planet filled me with more fear than that monster. I pointed the gun directly down and fired. The bullet slammed into my foot, and I felt some of the bones break. Bleeding, lame, and feeling scared, hopefully the perfect bait for these predators. Now! I roar, while shooting out the windows near to me, so I can jump out as best as I could. The pain was excruciating, but the presence of the skinwalkers was a very motivating factor. Limping, I made it to the window as the skinwalker out the front walked over to me. Its rotten flesh seemed to absorb the light from the diner. Let's party, came that voice again as I landed outside and grunted in pain. Fear from the Jersey Devil began to exude from me. I forced myself to move fast, but each step on my wounded foot was like standing on a ball of hot lead. Rapid movement from behind me was my only warning. I dove to the side as the skinwalker charged at me, its foot hitting my injured one. I never felt such agony before. I could hear car doors closing. The second skinwalker was visible now as it crawled through the window. Its rotten meat seemed to hang from the bones as it stared toward me. Its grin stretched beyond the realm nature indicated on the head that it currently had. Its jaw opened, and I could hear it replicate a scream of terror. I started to run, but the damage to my foot slowed me down. The car engine revved somewhere in the parking lot. I could hear the tires squeal in protest as the former mortician and hostess raced to safety. Limping as fast as I could, I saw the second skinwalker emerge from the cafe. It was even longer than the first. I briefly considered how my mind would have reacted to these unnatural monstrosities if I hadn't encountered the Leviathan. Something shifts in the atmosphere when my mind brushes against that memory. The predatory beast pause. They glance at each other. Then they charge at me. Fear is no longer useful. It has served its purpose. What I need is fury. White, cold fury. I charge at the aberrations and roll under the swiping claws of the closest creature. Pushing off of my wounded foot, I spring up and I let the pain fuel me with adrenaline. Fire is a good weapon against the supernatural, and while I cannot throw it, I pray this diner has gas stoves. Screeches that threaten to scratch my eardrums to shreds burst forth from the ravenous maws. Scrambling as they follow, I dive through the serving window, Crashing to the ground, I looked up and see the stoves are gas. Clawing my way up, while the skinwalker stalked toward me, I pull at the stove. And with a grunt, I can feel it start to give. Then I almost hit my head on the stove. I turn on the valves, gas hissing away, and I grab 2 knives while I slip my gun into my holster. Control. That word is my anchor. And while the pain fills me with adrenaline, one stupid mistake would get me killed. I need to stay in control, but angry enough to give my attacks more power. They stalk a different side of the kitchen island towards me, skilled and trained predatory tactics. I throw 1 knife at the furthest monster, but the blade doesn't get much purchase against the rotten flesh. I back up to the door and I can see them smiling at me. Patience, not a common mental trait of monsters. And by now, I am almost at the door and they are blocking my view of the kitchen. I can't run. They will catch me in a heartbeat, or whenever they want to. And I can't shoot the oven to trigger a spark and hopefully an explosion. But I do see a microwave. I draw fire 3 shots. The first misses. The second one connects and sparks fly from the electronic device. I don't hear the third shot due to the explosion and the screeching. The shockwave throws me out to the doorway and I land on the asphalt. The screeching takes a higher pitch as I roll over and look at the 2 skinwalkers, who are still standing and walking towards me. I force myself up and I start to limp into the forest. I can hear them stalk towards me, and I am too sore to continue fighting. Glancing back as I make my way through the forest, I can see their engulfed bodies. A loud crack causes me to flinch, and turning around, I only see 1 walking flaming corpse, and that too crashes to the ground. A piercing howl seems to actually tear the night sky apart. Then silence returns. I eventually made it to the main road where I met a strike teams dispatched by the morticians. I debriefed them while they took me to a trusted vet. I apologize for the delayed update, but I have been trying to recover. But my dreams feature those 2 skinwalkers with heightened prevalence. While recuperating from the self-inflicted gunshot wound, I decided to resume my actual duties as an archivist for the Mortician Network. I noticed an oddly assortment of cases spread across multiple cities, each with varying numbers in each location. Case File: Sewer Inhabitant, NYC 01386. Preliminary details are small due to what was left of the body outside a storm sewer grate on the outskirts of Manhattan. Most of her right hand bearing telltale signs of tattoos, and a tan are the immediate identifying features. No rings adorn the hand, and the fingerprints have turned up nothing on any criminal database. It is likely that this is one of the many missing homeless people in New York City. However, due to the lack of a body or location where the victim was last seen, any further detail is currently speculation unless we ask the entire homeless population if the photograph of this hand looks familiar. Body part was found on June 2, 2010. Case File: Sewer Inhabitant, NYC 0068. Preliminary details are more substantial as a large part of the torso and upper thighs were relatively undamaged when removed from a sewer junction when discovered. Autopsy indicates the presence of claws and sharpened fangs were used to remove the flesh from the bone. Traces amounts of DNA indicate a human variation. DNA mapping indicates that this variant is smaller than the average human. The skin would be scaly like a lizard, as the creature is cold-blooded. No mappable bone structure, but hardened cartilage is theorized to allow movement. The eyes seem to allow vision in low or no light, with an aversion to powerful light. Clothing remnants indicate that this was a subcontractor for the city. Partial tattoos allowed for easier identification as a reformed gang member. The victim was reported as being missing for approximately 3 weeks, in comparison to the estimated time of death. Partial data recovery from destroyed cellular phone have the estimated date and time of death. Vague witness reports indicate heightened noise pollution from the sewer. One witness who was walking along the street on the same day of death advised that there was no ambient noise from any animals in the area, while motor vehicles could be audibly identified. There were no birds chirping or insect background noise. No other abnormalities were noticed by the witness. Case file: Sewer Inhabitant, Paris, number 0013. Mauled body of an urban explorer found outside an entrance to the Parisian sewer system. No traces of DNA, despite the evidence of the similar wounds found on other victims killed in sewer systems around the world. Given the likelihood this urban explorer was originally delving into the Paris catacombs, no further investigation is to occur. When I started to look after case files pertaining to the Parisian catacombs, the only comments regarding these were, "Please refer to the hard copies locked away in a safe place." There are over 913 case files with dates going back decades. I will be speaking with the morticians once I have healed up more. The hostess from the bar is seeing one of the therapists who have dealt with those who survived an encounter with the paranormal, as she was really traumatized with the situation. A situation I can understand since encountering the Jersey Devil. There was a few camera feeds of maintenance workers going into the sewer systems. Most are like the end of the Blair Witch, the potential to be shocking, but ultimately a giant anticlimax. But one did catch my attention, not from a maintenance worker, but by a wealthy urban explorer who spent a significant amount on his gear, including a wireless transmitter that could penetrate the ground well enough to send the footage to a black box recording device. This included audio as well, and I will include a transcription of the relevant audio. Case file: Sewer Inhabitant, Detroit, number 01499. Blood-stained camera and shattered pieces of head found outside a storm sewer entry point. Camera appears to be a GoPro with aftermarket antenna modifications to allow greater transmission power and clarity. Network tracing allowed the investigators to locate a black box setup at home of a citizen in the socio-economic bracket of the upper class. Name has been redacted due to the complicated history this family has with the paranormal. Owner of the camera was reported as missing, and the remains were found 3 weeks after the initial complaint. The official answer given to the family is that the child was kidnapped and killed via a red room on the dark web. Footage has been created to emulate this, should they ever ask to see the footage. The recording was examined and copied to the corresponding case file. Video and audio clip. The initial start is a voiceover of the urban explorer introducing himself with his Urbex handle. He states that he wanted to explore the storm sewers around Detroit because he believes that it will be just like the video game series, infamous of the PlayStation consoles. He approaches a large intake and enters. He describes the surprising amount of research that he did into this, and he comments on past excursions that he conducted. He walks for about 15 minutes before he freezes. Audio. Did you hear that? Sounds like something was scratching the wall. Video. The urbexer looks behind him slowly, the headlight revealing nothing in the corridor behind him. Turning back, he doesn't seem to notice that there is something ahead which draws further into the darkness. Judging by the lack of commentary from the urbexer, it seems unlikely that he did not see the creature. Using the alternate methods that were also being recorded due to the high-quality camera, night vision reveals the presence of 3 short humanoids with very long arms and very short legs. As the urbexer creeps forward, the 3 creatures move backwards, but the movement seems odd, more fluid than normal. Audio. Well, I hope I don't run into any mole people down here. A mole person is a derogatory term used to describe people who live underground. Probably better than Morlock from the Time Machine, though. Video. He explores a little further and arrives at an intersection. Periodic checking of the night vision mode reveals that the sewer inhabitants split up at the intersection. The only likely safe path is for him to return home, but he didn't seem to be aware. He looks down each corridor and he is silent again. He seems to be trying to listen for something. Audio. In the distance, water drips. There is no other ambient noise other than the breathing of the urbexer. Then, there is a high-pitched shriek. Video and audio. The urbexer swears and charges straight ahead. His panting echoes off the walls around him. He looks back, and in the bouncing headlight, he can see the sewer inhabitants. He turns to face in front of him, but he slams into a wall that he didn't see, and he crashes heavily to the ground. There is no movement from the camera, and I suspect that he knocked himself out. However, the video shows him trying to move, and a soft groan, which is drowned out by the scrabbling of claws on the ground. He rolls over to his back and then starts to sit up. The inhabitants approach, and the light shining off their eyes. The way the arms bend indicate that the arms are cartilage-based, rather than a skeletal system. A swipe from an arm of an inhabitant knocks the light and the camera off the urbexer's head. Contrary to popular horror tropes, the camera doesn't land in a way that shows the carnage that is audible. The screams last for approximately 39 minutes before the assumed death of the urbexer. The camera records for another several hours before powering off. It is unknown how the camera appeared at the entrance where it was located. As I went through the hundreds of cases from around the world, including Russia, which is unusual as they never shared any case files that I had seen, I became concerned about what these creatures were, other than man-eaters. Their movement, from what I could see, were weirdly fluid, and the skeletal structure, as previously mentioned, seemed to be more focused on cartilage than actual bone. The only thing that struck me as off in all of these cases were the ones based in Paris. 5 recorded deaths with autopsies performed on what was left, but there were a disconcerting amount of references to the Parisian catacombs and very empathetic warnings to stay away. Since I got a regular visitor in the form of a retired mortician, I decided to being it up with him when I next saw him. Closing down my connection to the dark web, I hear a knock on my door. As I answer it, I notice something very unusual. There is no white noise at all, no hum of electronics or anything like that. As I opened the door, I saw no one until I turned around. A black Rigelian stood there, slightly hunched over and looking directly at me. Seeing the Rigelian in front of me, I was taken aback. I certainly was not expecting a member of an alien race that does experiments on humans to be in my home. It stands there like in those movies, weight mainly on one leg, as if peering around a corner, except he is in my hallway. "Why are you here?" I asked it. "Hello," it said uncertainly. I repeated the question, and it paused for a moment and said, "Hello, I am sorry," it said before I could respond. This put me on defensive, as these seemed to be the reason for the mushed corpses. Having a dialogue, even on this unusual, seemed to hold my interest for my health in good standing. Next thing I know, I am getting flashes in my mind, like someone is somehow physically slamming a slideshow into my mind. Trees, but not the ones I expected to see. Rainforest, perhaps. Another image. This one is more chaotic. Flashes of movement. Barely there glimpses of what I believe are faces. More images of something, likely in the woods. Sounds can be heard. Screaming, begging, mercy is being requested, whimpering. What can be understated as a migraine decides to set up a blog dancing competition with a global supply of elephants on my brain would cause a quieter noise than the pounding my head is forcing me to endure. I see black Rigelians standing around, looking over their shoulder with long coats on. They are smiling, for a lack of a better word, though it seems more leering. This is an undercurrent of an emotion that I cannot quite comprehend. "Sorry," it says again. I still cannot figure out what it's trying to convey. Another flood of images, half-man monster creatures in bad makeup running around a movie set. Dr. Morrow. Then it clicks. You turned humans into monsters, didn't you?" I whisper. "Me, no. Others, yes," it stated simply. I can feel a deep sense of violation at this statement. No, not the statement. The complete lack of inflection. It didn't feel bad for what the others did to another race. But then I remember that I was educated on empathy. Any damage I incurred, regardless of intent, my parents would sit me down and discuss it with me in great detail. My intentions towards the objects were the occasional house pet whose corpse they found. After the sixth cat, I asked why they did this, and they explained that due to my lack of emotions, they came to understand that I do not understand the emotional impact of my actions. They told me how other people would view my actions and see me as a monster. Well, my intention was never to commit harm to another person. When the cat annoyed me too much, I would kill it. Perhaps this alien is like me. No emotional awareness. While part of me still burned at the thought of their actions, I decided to understand the intent. "Why? What would cause you to turn the humans you get into monsters?" I ask. Images flood into my mind, but these were very familiar. It was Sid's bedroom in Toy Story. The focus was on Sid causing harm to the toys with malicious glee. And then they see him put them back together in ways he found entertaining. We are mere playthings to them, toys to pull apart and put back together however they want. Bile rises in my throat and I force it back down. That ember of rage was roaring into an inferno. I wanted to slam my fist into that Rigelian over and over again until I turned into a black smear on my carpet. When I stood up, after the visions drove me to my knees, it took a step back. It recognized the danger it was in. Its hands were lifted slightly, like a person would do to try and placate the predator. Then, the emotions were gone. You are going to tell us how many you turned and into what? Then, you will tell us why you made contact with me, I declared in a whisper. My phone rang, and I answered it. The ex-mortician greeted me and wanted to visit. Now would be a perfect time, and bring a voice recorder. There's a conversation we need to have, I say, my eyes fixed on the Regalian. The rage hadn't truly dissipated, but it wasn't trying to overtake my conscious action. What human foods can you consume safely? French toast, it said, while giving me an image of a French toast in my head. Any human liquids? Water. You seem to be aware of some societal protocols. I expect you will be following along as it is not a direct violation of your own, I said as I walked to the kitchen. 25 minutes later, I had finished making the French toast and was carrying it back to the Black Regalian and the stunned ex-mortician who were at my dining table. The recorder was turned on as we started our meal. What monsters did you create? The ex-mortician asked, his eyes glancing at me once to see if he had permission to speak. Vampire, Therian, Arachne, Minotaur, Satyr. Animal-headed human from place with lots of sand. Others, mainly humanish ones. Others were too difficult and died. Arachne? From ancient Greek lore, you turned a human woman into a spider? Woman with no limbs, broken toy when we found her. Gave her twice as many limbs. Removed tongue to stop loud noises. The ex-mortician and I froze in shock at this. Not much left to do to finish, it said simply. Why? The ex-mortician asked. I closed my eyes and explained my conversation with my guest before he called. The ex-mortician started to shake with rage. I glared at him and told him to calm down, and he started to yell at me when I pointed out two obvious facts. The first fact, that this Black Regalian has taken the time to study our culture more to facilitate communications, to confess the actions of his people. The second fact was he clearly wanted to warn us about something, because there would be no other reason for him to break into my house for no reason. Why are you here? Why have you come to me? As I tried to understand emotions and the inflections of people used to express them, there are things you notice. The pause before someone drops a huge truth would shake the worldview of the listeners. I am not sure if it's learned behavior the Regalian picked up during its consumption of media, or if it performed it instinctively. You came to warn us. Your people are trying to what? Enslave humanity? No, not enslave, so much as change us into monsters of our fiction. Because you think that it would be fun? I ask, my mouth slightly agape. It looks at me and then nods. They were going to release the ones you don't know about against you all. You likely wouldn't live too long. I can't help, I say after a long pause. I had considered it, but given my recent injury and the archiving still ahead of me, it would be irresponsible for me to go. You need a warrior, not a soldier, but a natural-born warrior. If you can find one who would be suitable, I will help convince them. But this is not my war. I have been dragged into the cryptids, native to this planet. And here are the top comments for my last video. And here's the riddle for this video. Hello everyone, it's your creepy sister here. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate each and every one of you. But I would also like to thank my amazing patrons, my top tippers, and my dearest channel members. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it with all of my heart. If you want to support the channel further, you could also choose to become a patron, a tipper, or a channel member. But remember, it's appreciated, but never a requirement. I would also like to announce that we have merch now. The link is in the description of the video, along with all my other social media links, like my Discord server, Twitter, Instagram, and others. You can connect with me and send your stories there. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and comments are highly appreciated. And remember, your fear feeds me.